Nope. So, for the listener out there, if you can still hear this, is that barrel roller is completely frozen. Uh, we can see him. His audio,
Christmas.
however, is still going, but he can't hear us.
Recording in
Save
progress.
the world. Oh, here we go. I'm back in.
You're back.
Uh,
You're back.
I was telling everybody the famous Christmas story about John McClane as I was gone. I don't know. I kept getting kicked out of the Zoom. What did you guys talk about while I was gone?
The giant
The giant.
I can hear myself in an echo. P.S.
I can
But
hear
the
myself in an
giant
echo. P.S. But the
softball
giant.
complex here in Columbus, Ohio.
From the highway, it looks beautiful. It's at least 10 or 12, fields. It's you
I
just
think
don't.
it's. I think honestly, no joke. I think it's like close to 30.
Is it
Yeah,
unbelievable?
they put their premier fields in the middle and up front towards the entrance, and then so they host these massive tournaments, these weekend long tournaments with hundreds and hundreds of teams, and then they start them back at the smaller, lesser fields, and then you move into the middle.
Interesting. Yeah, looks great.
All right, back to it. Dan, tell me about you. You look like you're an intense dude. Now that's just going off a visual of you. I don't know anything about you, Dan.
All right.
Tell me about some of these vintage baseball injuries that you've done.
Injuries?
Sure.
Probably the most common injuries, first of all, we play the overhand 1886 game. And most of and of course I'm the catcher, and that was out of necessity. In our first year, I was playing the outfield, and it's the most challenging position in vintage baseball is the catcher. Because back in 1886, most of these overhand ball throwers, were just starting to learn speed, just starting to learn control overhand, compared to the guys today. Certainly at the age of 25, 30, 35, they've all been pitching and pitching as hard as they can, pitching with good control. So the equipment you have as a catcher is pretty minimal, and I've had to adopt how to catch that ball as a catcher. Typically what an 86 club does here in this part of the country is we'll use a glove from like 1914, and we'll snip out the webbing. And if you need any other protection, you can wear an overhand vintage glove underneath that. But when I first started out, I didn't put anything underneath there. And as I said before, some of these guys, they just want to throw gas because that's all they know, with little concern about me. And my hand would be like ballooned by the fourth inning and a couple of days after that. So as far as I'm concerned, that's my biggest early years injuries. But beyond that, we found better quality reproduction mitts from 1910 that have better padding, and so that's I've improved that myself. And then of course, you can't do the hand behind your back because number one, they didn't do that back then, and number two, in order to catch those foul tips, you got to have your hand ready. So occasionally, if I'm sleeping, I'm gonna a foul tip off your finger. So this is where you get busted here on these fingers here, primarily the throwing fingers. So I've learned, through trial and error, many years of trial and error, and I feel pretty comfortable, with not getting injuries now.
We saw out at Old Bethpage um, this summer. I saw the Providence Grays play the Canton Corn Shuckers, and the catcher's glove was so paper thin I thought there's just no way that this is what's out. That was accurate. That was time period accurate. And I'm like, uh, I can't believe that we're playing with this, even though it was accurate. Uh, but the gentleman from the Cane Corn Shuckers, Ryan Glazer, did a fabulous job. And then we interviewed people from California that are playing overhand, and they did say how they took liberties with the accuracy of the glove, and they went up a little bit so there was more protection and everything. And you were just telling us you used something from like 1914, I believe, and made some alterations. Uh, Generally, are you guys altering your catcher's gloves out there on the to kind of make it more sustainable, I guess?
Well, at this point, we all use the same style of catcher's glove. Catcher's glove. It's it's like I said, a glove from the 1910s, and simply because it's got more padding on it. You can't. There were catcher's gloves back then, but they had a little bit more padding. But you can't find those. You can't go to Vintage Mart and find a 1886 catcher's glove. So you gotta do the best. And if everyone's doing the same thing, then it's okay. I know the guys in California, because I've seen the photos and I've seen video. They're using more the pillow style. If you notice that. So, but that's okay. But we do the best we can, and it's still, it doesn't make it any easier. It's just a little bit more padding. And then it depends on your pitcher. Is he just a meathead who's just going to throw gas because he doesn't know any better, and then has no respect for you as the catcher and just beats the snot out of you, or is he going to mix it up, throwing junk and which also can be a challenge too. But hey, the tools of ignorance, right? Is what they say. So, but it's the best. Had I known how much fun catching is, I probably would have been a catcher in my growing up baseball life.
Okay. And it's interesting because you mentioned how you briefly mentioned how you're not putting your hand behind your back like you normally would set up as a modern catcher. And I've caught before, but my brother Ian is like just he's caught everything. He's caught pro players. He's caught everyone. I was wondering, like, what if there's like a disconnect? If you need to separate and be uh, like tools and skills that modern catchers use that you just can't. I mean, or is the hand pretty much the same thing? Like, is it the same tools? Are you slide blocking? Are you taking stuff off the chest? Are you trying to knock stuff down with the glove in the hand? Like, I've never caught an 86 game. I've only pitched, so I don't know anything about it as far as like from the catcher's perspective. Is it
plus I also do modern catching. I'm in a few other modern leagues, and where that game is more up and down, up and down. You're doing the blocking here, but in vintage style, because by the time the ball gets to the plate, it's swaying. So you got to go left, you got to go right, because you don't have the pocket in the mitt to get out there. So you got to see it coming, and you got to go left, you got to go right, and and oftentimes I do like to stand back and try to make it authentic and not so much squat. Because that was the style. And then when a runner got on base, we're talking the 1880s, that's when the catcher got closer to the batter and began to semi-squat, not the squat that today where they've got their legs spread out and all that stuff. You look at any pictures too, the catcher's like standing up way back until someone got on base. And then, or if if there's two strikes on the batter, you do move up because I think one of the things that I'm known for is catching that foul tip strikeout. That ends an inning, that ends a batter so quick. And that's the coolest thing. A foul tip catch is an out. And that's one of the things I like about this game, the 86 game. And it's something they should probably put in the modern game.
Right?
I have to tell you that I think we have the only no-hitter in vintage baseball 9-inning game, and I caught the game. So that's one of the things I hang my hat on, is I caught a no-hitter in a vintage game, 9 innings. And it's a classic no-hitter where the fielders are just making crazy defensive plays to save it. So that was pretty cool. That's one of the highlights of my vintage career, catching a no-hitter.
Was that with one pitcher?
Yeah. Matches Avery,
Oh,
tremendous slider. We were playing the Simsbury Taverniers at Colt Park in Hartford, and that was great. That was something special. Didn't by the time the 4th inning rolled around, I'm asking him, not realizing there's a no-hitter involved. I said, "You ready to come out?" Because we usually have, a pitcher throw 3 or 4 innings, and then another pitcher, couple innings, and another pitcher. He says to me, "Are you crazy? I'm pitching a no-hitter." So I didn't even realize that, because the game's going quick, and
Wow.
all of a sudden he's got a no-hitter going. I'm like ready to take him out. So, but we left him in there, and he finished it up. It was fantastic. And I think that's probably the only no-hitter in overhand vintage baseball.
Well, you're about to find out if it really is, because we're going to get messages from the Pony Express telling us all the other no-hitters that have happened in vintage baseball. But we're talking to Dan Genovese. Am I getting that right?
Genovese, yeah.
Genovese, gunner from the Westfield Wheelmen Vintage Baseball Club. Would I be correct to assume that this moniker of gunner has come from the catcher position?
Well, actually, I had that prior to, because like I said before, I didn't grow up being a catcher. I grew up in the outfield, and so I fashioned that after throwing players out, in the air from the outfield to the catcher. So just a gun.
Oh,
That's where it came from. So, but
I mean, there are a
That's all
few
right.
things
You can-
better than throwing somebody out from the outfield.
that's great.
So, yeah, it's the best.
that's like an inside the park home run,
Yeah.
which you don't get that in vintage, but it's like that. It's like that feeling. Dan, when you were a young man, a young boy, you still had the beard, of course, at 12. When you were even younger than that, what are your first baseball memories that you have?
I would say probably, like many people in the Northeast, is the first time you went to Fenway Park. And my father had brought me with a church trip. We went, of course, if you've never been to Fenway Park and you're, 8 years old, 9 years old, you're walking down below, it doesn't look like anything. And then you come out the runway and you see the green monster. It's like, holy shit, what is this? This is crazy. And so that was my first memory. It was also the day we landed on the moon. And I remember it was a July 20th, 1969 or whatever that was. And I remember them stopping the game. And kind of a funny story is that what was it with Reggie Smith? He was coming to bat, or no, he made an error or something, and everybody had transistor radios and heard that we just landed on the moon. They didn't announce it yet, and everyone's like cheering. He was like, "Why were they cheering when I made an error?" He didn't. So they eventually announced it. So that's my first memory of baseball.
Wow.
What about when you're playing around the neighborhood with the neighborhood kids? One of the favorite questions that we ask on the show, because it gets such a good response and great answers, is when you're a kid in your neighborhood, you're not rounding up 17 other kids to play an official baseball game. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
Never. So you have to implement your own rules, and you have to do with what you got. What did the baseball games look like in your neighborhood with the kids?
Well, actually, a lot of it was wiffle ball in my neighbor's backyard, who was a little bit older than me. So he was really into it, and we were playing wiffle ball in the backyard with his house being the green monster, so to say. So we just had intense games of playing wiffle ball. When it hits this, it's a ground rule double. It hits the roof, it's a home run. It hits the porch, it's a home run. If you can get to the ball before it stops, it's an out. On the ground. So yeah, we improvised in that respect as well. And we also spent a lot of time in my friend's backyard, just hanging out. He had a stucco garage, and we would spend hours throwing at the garage with a tennis ball, hitting a target, and actually, playing a lot of imaginary games in that respect, and how often you hit the strike zone. So, there's things you do, back in the day, and it just kept us going. That was a lot of fun. That's what you did.
Did you go through organized baseball from say the minors all the way through? Did you go that route?
Well, I did the traditional route at the time, which was Little League. The first thing you do is a level B, then you go to the majors, or if you're not good enough, you go to level A before you get to the majors. So then you do that, you do the all-star thing. Then I went to Babe Ruth baseball, and in 1975 we went to the first Babe Ruth 13-year-old World Series. And it was actually, now if you look it up in their record books, they don't count that because it was an experimental event. And the reason we were guinea pigs, they wanted to see how a 13-year-old would travel, because you had to hang out with foster families, so it was, it wasn't like your parents driving you and you stayed in the hotel for 3 or 4 days or whatever. So it was we were like guinea pigs. They wanted to see how it worked, and it worked out great. We did that for a New England regional tournament, and then we did the same thing in New Jersey, and then high school, Legion, college, Tri-County, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, a typical stepping stone from back of the day. Then of course you retired to softball, and at that point there wasn't many, plus 25 or plus 30 baseball going on in this area. And then, so I actually had to retire from playing ball because I had 2 kids. They were growing up. I couldn't spend, 5 nights a week going from town to town playing ball. It went over like a fart in church. So I had to retire, raise the kids. And by the time they were old enough, I was like in the way. So I went and started playing ball again. So that was kind of cool. So.
And was this eventually, I mean, and I apologize because I'm coming late to the party. Was this eventually the next step, vintage baseball? Like you discovered vintage baseball through your baseball when you came back to the game, or how did you discover it?
Yeah. So, what's interesting is soon after 9/11, I started doing a lot of research on local baseball history for some reason. I don't know if anything to do with 9/11. It's just the whole American thing. And I was just doing some start off research, just checking a few things that, I found somewhere where here in Westfield, we had a player who was born, played 13 years in the major leagues, starting in 1884, played 13 years in the major leagues, born in this town in Westfield, Massachusetts. And you wouldn't know it. There isn't anything that says, anything in town, no plaque, no nothing. So I was like, well, that's interesting. And then I started doing some more research. There was another player who played at a cup of coffee in the major leagues under a false name in 1883. He's like, wow, this is cool. So I was kind of into the 19th century baseball mode, doing some research. And then we were talking earlier about how this started. And I had seen the ball game on ESPN back in 2004, I think it was. And it was between the Hartford Senators and the Pittsfield Elms. And it was broadcasted in sepia, which is like crazy cool. I I have to go see this. And believe it or not, it's, it was up in Pittsfield. But they did have other games in the area. So I did visit, I watched the game, and then I went and spoke to people like Grit Moran from the Senators, who was extremely helpful, helping me, understand where to get the belt, where to get the bats, balls, uniforms, all that stuff, and how to develop a team. And then I actually played a couple of games with the Senators, just to really confirm. Was like, once I played a couple of games, I said, this is it. This is what I want to do. So so that's how I got hooked, is that game that was on TV, and then I went to see one. I said, this is great. This is what I want to do. So I did.
And the uniforms for the Westfield Club are pretty sharp. When you're seeing this on the YouTube channel, you can see, are those two different uniforms?
Yeah,
Standing.
there's actually another uniform. We started out with all white and with Westfield across the chest, and then I wanted to mix it up a little bit, go with more of the sun collar, as you can see on some of the ball players. And then I have one here that's me, of course, in a whole different maroon color. And when you look at photos of town teams back in the late 19th century, you notice they're not all perfectly uniformed. It's whatever they can find, and then you go to the Depression era, and the guys are wearing whatever. So it's more accurate than you might think.
Wait a second. Are you suggesting that they weren't all mass-produced, manufactured, cookie-cuttered uniforms? What?
Yeah. Not that you can just buy off the shelf in a week, So it kind of gives it more of an authentic look,
I love it. It looks sharp. I mean, yeah. And I've always been a proponent of that. The teams that are a little hodgepodgey in their uniforms, like I mean, I always use the Atlantics as they're patching together their uniform, and
Right.
I feel like that's like more historically accurate. So
And then you see this guy behind us here in the high wheel bicycle. You see that?
yeah.
That's a real high wheel bicycle, because the Wheelmen, it was a bicycle factory in Westfield at the time, and so we got our name from the Westfield Wheelmen, a baseball club at the time in the mid 1880s, and it all stems from bicycle production. And this guy here, Andale, one of our pitchers, went out and bought one, and he learned how to ride it, which is crazy. And so he brings it with us everywhere. He brought it to Bethpage, from Massachusetts. Wow. And
I think, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest, it's kind of a fog. I feel like I have a memory of seeing that bike at Gettysburg.
Yeah, that's
it. Barrel roller, if you can imagine, it's like you could roll an ankle getting out of the parking lot, like on these grounds. And the fact that thing's going up and down the field at Gettysburg, I was like, you know what? That's one of the most impressive things I've seen.
Yeah, we had in Westfield the 350th birthday of the town of Westfield, and of course, we were invited to go on the parade, and we were on a horse-drawn carriage. Except for him, he was on the high wheel bike and going around the thing, and the fans were loving it. And it must have been like 5 miles, and he never got off it, and he never slowed down, and just going. He's spectacular. So wow. It really does bring a little bit of a little bit more history to it, especially for this town, since that's where these bikes were made, which is cool.
Well, we have a saying here on the podcast that nobody will treat it special if you don't treat it special. And so obviously you guys treat it special. So we appreciate that happening. Dan, can you tell me some of the favorite venues of yours personally that you've had a chance to play at over the years?
Yeah, that's we as a group, we love old Bethpage. We like the fact that it's a historical replication, and there's other people walking around in 18th century garb, which is really cool. You have and we usually play. We usually play on the hottest weekend in August, right? So it's hotter than hell, and there's a lot of shade. In fact, right in the middle, we all tend to congregate, for post game meals and drinks and so on. So it's real simple. It's nice right there. We can change out of our uniforms because they're hot and smelly, and in the street clothes before we get back at it, and it's really nice because you get a lot of people coming by because it's a state-run facility, historical place where you get a lot of crazy looks, you get a lot of questions. So we like to spend the time and talk about it and promote it. So that's probably our favorite place to play, and we'll be going back there. We loved where were we? Gettysburg, but I personally like Old Bethpage a little bit better. I think that's cool.
I mean,
Go ahead.
there's so much history with both of those locations, but I feel like Old Bethpage has the history of like one of the birthplaces of vintage baseball. Like, so I mean, for our community, I feel like it's Old Bethpage and Muffin Meadow. Like, they both hold equal weight in the same sense that they're state run and they have all these, such a rich history of vintage baseball, 19th century baseball. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we've played in a lot of other facilities. I mean, we've traveled to California, like you said, Gettysburg. And there's in our next town over in Springfield, there's Forest Park, which has a really old grandstand, which is really cool, that kind of thing. And even in our hometown, we have a nice grandstand, built in the 30s, so it's not 19th century, but it's well preserved, and it's tough to get that feel because all the kids use it, and college summer leagues use it, so tough to get it, but that's pretty cool. So I got to say though, Bethpage is our favorite for that, just because you're right with all the players and all the teams, and right in the middle of all the games.
You guys do travel so well. That seemed to be a point of emphasis you brought up earlier, because you don't have a lot of events, so everybody has a high commitment level when you have less events.
That's
because
true.
they know it could be, if they don't show up to one, it could be 2 months of no baseball for them. So
Right, exactly.
do you have any on the road stories that you're willing to share with us? You don't have to use names, but perhaps an on the road story with your club, maybe not on the field necessarily.
Oh man, I think nothing crazy comes to mind. Hanging out at the hotel, hanging out by the pool, and Old Bethpage. Nothing crazy. God, I they're all crazy. you know, and I think we've been doing this for this will be our 17th season. I think we've probably slowed down a little bit, so we've probably gotten less crazy and much smarter,
Guys use You've been around for 17 years. What do you guys use as recruiting tools besides word of mouth and trying to get everybody's friend or cousin to play?
No,
If
that's
you
it.
really
That's
want to,
we
that's it.
we don't advertise. We have our Facebook page. We occasionally will get someone wanting to understand how to join the team, how to join the club, and we'll talk to them for a little bit and invite them out if they want to come out. But it is definitely word of mouth, or someone knows somebody. Hey, we're going to be short this weekend. Who do you got? Can you make some calls? And we got spare uniforms, and inevitably they end up loving the game, and a lot of times they'll come back the following game, and then so once you get someone to play, they're hooked. So it's all word of mouth. That's everyone. Everyone plays ball, and everyone knows everybody.
That's the funny thing about vintage baseball is, like when you watch a TV series, okay, like when The Walking Dead started, and I was getting people telling me, you got to watch a show, and I started watching it, and you get like 3 episodes in, you're like, I don't know yet, but You go on the field and you play a vintage baseball match. You know the first time.
Yeah.
You know that first game, that first day, if you're coming back. Do you want more, or is this just not for you? It's not something you have to contemplate very long. And that always amazes.
It's the experience of learning the game over. It's the experience of hanging out with us. I like to promote that we know the game. We know baseball. We have great conversation after the game about anything and everything, and we're just we're good guys to hang with. So we have a good time for sure, especially post game.
Especially post game. What is the drink of choice for the Wheelmen?
Well, that's a great question. It used to be Blue Moons. Used to be.
Oh.
And then I personally went on a kick to go keto.
Ooh.
Right. So I was in the 200 club, maybe 210 at one time. And, so then for some reason, I wanted to lose it. I wanted to get back to high school, college weight. And so then I stopped because you have 3 or 4 of those things and you are just bloated. Then you look at the label, how many carbs on a Blue Moon? If everyone's got one, I mean, it's like probably like 30 or 40. It's like insane. So once I started doing keto, I got rid of that. And a lot of guys got rid of it. So I think you're going to find a lot of, Trulies and, it's not the most manly thing, but,
Oh God, no, please. No,
No,
tell me.
no, you own that truly. Yes. They're delicious and refreshing.
I thought for sure we were going to vodka. What
Well,
happened?
no,
Where did that
yeah,
and
Tito's and seltzer
seltzer.
is also in the cooler for sure.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I was after my first kid, I was close to 230, and then I went keto and cut out all the beer and alcohol for I did 35 days and it was miserable, but I got under 200 pounds, and then I found that just a simple a flask of rum, a little Diet Coke gets me. I'm fine.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the holiday season, so I make exceptions for holiday beers. But
got to be strong-willed,
Yeah, right.
Rudy's a vegetarian, not by he doesn't really have a reason. But he's a vegetarian.
I'm a vegetarian adjacent.
Yes. Rudy, I'm curious. You had the tofurkey for Thanksgiving. What is the vegetarian equivalent of the ham for Christmas? What is that?
It's not. There isn't. It's more tofurkey.
Oh, God damn! That guy needs a cheeseburger. Okay. Best cheeseburger in Massachusetts, Dan. Where's it at?
I would say best cheeseburger. It's not going to be a chain. I'm not going to say Five Guys. I'm going to say God, what's the name of the place? I just don't go there anymore. All right, I'm going to say 7B's in Westfield.
Okay.
Not too far from the airport.
Dan, you've been great. Thanks for being on the show. We're not letting you go yet, but I really appreciate coming on this show that you didn't know much about. I assume. I don't know. Have you ever heard this show? Do you know us?
I've been cramming the last few days.
Oh,
we get a lot of crammers on the show. If you go, we have we're almost at 180 episodes. There's a lot of cramming you can do.
Wow. Only maybe a handful comes up on YouTube.
Oh yeah, the YouTube is a recent event, right? We've only it's almost up to date. There's only a few episodes that are not up to date, but yeah.
So I went 2.5 seasons as a solo act, Dan, and then Rudy joined me because he also had a vintage baseball podcast that was more Columbus Capitals centralized, at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
And he decided to pull the plug on that. So I swooped in like I'm the New York Yankees and
Ah,
Bottom out.
I'm riding your
so ever
coattails,
since-
buddy.
So ever since he's joined, we've branched out. So that's where the YouTube thing came from. So we don't have, I don't know if we'll ever go back and just add audio onto the YouTube channel. I don't know what we're going to do, but probably a lot more of our play-by-play matches that we're going to go to and stuff like that will show up in all the future interviews from whenever he joined to the future. Cause I didn't even do Zoom until Rudy came along. I just did audio mediums. So lots of changes. We don't even know what we're going to look like in a year. We don't even know. Isn't that the exciting part? We don't know what's going on.
We could have our own network.
That's right.
But yeah, if you go to podbean.com, right, and you find us on there, you can go back in the archives and you can find an interview with Paul Salamone. We have an interview with him before his passing. We have Marjorie Adams.
Mm-hmm.
We have an interview with, one of my first interviews was with Chuck Ciccarello. We've done quite a few East Coasters, but we do go all over the country, and you hear the different rules and the different ways it gets played, and the different venues, and it's really good.
You should try to convert those to YouTube and just for the audio.
Yeah. And honestly, I think the beautiful thing is that you were talking about how well traveled your team is, and existing for 17 years. Like, I know for a fact there will be people listening to this episode and they'll be blown away. They'll be like, wait, what? This isn't a new club? Like, the fact that we can tie it in and bring and introduce people to the community throughout the whole community, that's invaluable.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we've seen clubs come and go, but we stay. We could have left. We could have just quit, but it's like, no, the guys don't want to quit. And, we hear rumblings of new teams starting maybe an hour, 2 hours away in travel. That's just pretty good. So, and then Chuck, you mentioned Chuck a few minutes ago. He's been the savior of vintage baseball in Northern Connecticut, which is great. So hats off to Chuck to really keep pushing. And we know this year we're actually going to spin off a team from Springfield, Mass. So we're pretty proud of that, and that's great. So we continue.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I've seen posts on Facebook about the Springfield team, so I'm really excited to see how that pans out.
Yep. That'll be great.
Is this Springfield team a whole separate club, or is this more of a travel club? What's the configuration of that?
Well, it's this guy here, Andale Condi, not me, him, the bike guy. I can't do that. Anyways, he's starting a team, but at the same time he's going to play with us when there's no conflicting schedule. So, and I think he's going to focus a lot on the 64 game.
Okay.
And less on the 86 game. But he'll be playing with us when we venture on the road. So
I like that. Yeah.
As you get older, the transition from 86 to 64 seems inevitable.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I'd say we're like 50-50 now. When we first started out, we were, 100% 86, but we're probably 50-50, maybe leaning a little bit more towards the overhand.
All right, Dan, before we get you out of here, if you listen to the end of the episodes, if you make it all the way to the end of a Roller Out the Barrel episode, we do a little thing called giving you the old pepper.
All right.
What's going to happen right here. Dan, tell us one of the best Christmas gifts you ever received.
Okay. I'm going to say a Joe Namath doll. Like a Barbie doll, but Joe Namath. I don't know why I got it, but he had his Jets uniform, and I'm not a Jets fan, but he had a Jets uniform, and then he had street clothes to go with it, and whatever. Say what you want. I wish I still had that doll. Probably worth thousands now.
I don't know. He's overrated. What dish did you overdo it on during Thanksgiving? And you're big on the keto and taking care of yourself now, and you probably tried to not overdo it, but was there something you probably had an extra helping of that you regret?
I'm smart, we had turkey breast and we had ham. I didn't eat any pie. I can be honest and say that. So I don't think you're going to get me on that one. Honestly, I'm very strict on that. Maybe
It's
too
not
many
living if you're
maybe too many Tito's.
not, you're just not enjoying life if there's no pie. Holy cow. Uh oh, Rudy's got his Nakatomi Plaza shirt on. I appreciate that. Uh what is your family's gift giving tradition? Is it all Christmas morning? Are you doing some stuff Christmas Eve? What do you guys do?
Well, when my wife and I were first married, we used to do Christmas Eve and just get the gifts out of the way, just the two of us, and then that would save time in the morning. We could just get up and go to her parents or my parents for the family dinner. But now, my kids are out of the house, and in fact, they have kids, so they have to go to other people. So it seems like we do Thanksgiving, everyone comes to our house, and now for Christmas, we'll spend the morning till about noon alone, and then people will start coming over, after they spend time with the other half of the family. So it changes, you know, but so that's what we do.
Dan, what was your first car?
A VW Rabbit diesel.
Wow.
And if you
Christmas.
if you tailgated me up a hill, you'd know it. That diesel, this was like an early diesel. This is like a 1980 diesel, and I would throw a smoke cloud behind it. It would be disgusting.
Christmas trees, real or fake?
Fake.
What Christmas song do you get tired of real quick?
The very first one I hear.
Do you collect anything?
Yeah. I'm no Tracy Martin, but if you go in my garage, you're going to see a lot of old catcher's masks displayed on the wall. I maybe have a dozen. And these are stuff you find on eBay, typically dating, early 20th century, maybe a 1950s Yogi Berra mask. But certainly I try to capture as many of the old masks as possible and strip them down, paint them, and put them on the wall.
Nobody is Tracy Martin.
Yeah, I know, man.
I think
is that a real museum, or is that just his house?
No, it's both. It's his house, and then the museum is his entire basement.
Wow.
And it is amazing.
If I'm ever out that way, I have to go visit.
Last year during the Ohio Cup, we were supposed to make plans to go to his house, but he went to Los Angeles, and Rudy couldn't. So
yeah,
like that. But this next year at the Ohio Cup, I'm sure we'll do something about that.
All right.
What is your favorite cheese?
Sharp cheddar.
Build us what your favorite pizza looks like.
Well, that's easy. Of course, it all starts from the crust, right? So as a keto, it's cauliflower crust. That's the main, if Pepe's pizza can make cauliflower pizza, that's what it would be. So I'm a pretty traditional guy. I don't although I do like Hawaiian pizza, as long as the what is it? The pineapple is cooked. So I do love Hawaiian pizza, but it's got to be cooked. And then of course the cauliflower crust, which is great, thin crust.
I love the Hawaiian pizza. I'm a big pineapple guy. I also have switched to the cauliflower crust because when I started my dieting, I guess it's dieting, I got up to 290. Rudy, I was 290. I am now back down to 266.
Nice.
I am 2 pounds 2 pounds away for my playing weight. No, Rudy, I'm not playing. And but I'm going to keep going. But what I've been doing, I took all bread out of my
Yeah.
and so but I love pizza so much I couldn't get rid of pizza, so it's
Right.
all cauliflower crust.
And more and
Yeah.
more places are making it, so that's a good news.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. And it's not bad at all. So I do the intermittent fasting, everybody. That's how I've lost weight.
Oh.
Well, and I also took out all pop, all fast food,
Yeah.
all bread. I think, and that's about it. And I was never a sugar guy. So taking out sugar hasn't been a big problem. Hey,
How about my first
vintage
concert?
of oh,
Oh
do you see
yeah.
my list? What's going on here? You listen to an episode. I will before the first concert, I was going to ask what your favorite vintage event that you want to go to that you haven't gone to yet
Mm.
is.
I think I'd like to go to California. And what is it, the California Cup? But that's just their teams, you know.
Yeah.
Which so yeah, obviously there's no invite there, but what is so that's kind of cool. I'd like to, I like the overhand game. I'd like to go out there, but is it where's the game? Is it Greenfield? Is there a tournament in where?
Yeah, it's a Rudy, take this one.
Oh, the World Tournament of
Yeah.
Historic Baseball in Greenfield Village.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's it. That is an 1867 tournament.
right. Yeah, that's like I said, we're spinning more towards the underhand game, 1860s. That's why we went to Gettysburg. So like I said, because the guys they're starting to like that a little bit more now. So maybe that's on our list.
That World's Tournament should be on everybody's list because the atmosphere alone is something you don't experience at a lot of different places. So,
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Dan, what's your first concert you ever went to?
Emerson, Lake and Palmer, 1978. In fact, it was the first two concerts I've ever been to. 2 months later, I saw them 2 months later after the Hartford Civic Center roof collapsed, so they had to move the concert in March to Springfield. So that was a blessing.
If animals could talk, you woke up one morning and the news said animals can talk. What's the first animal you're going to?
My dog.
You don't want to know what your dog has to say.
She pretty much tells me. She yells at me.
Dogs are definitely Karens if they had
Yeah.
a voice. You went to Fenway Park as a young boy. I assume you're a Red Sox fan to this day.
Correct.
What's your Mount Rushmore of Red Sox players? Your personal Mount Rushmore?
All right. Well, of course, Yaz, right? You got Pudge, Fisk. How many are there? 5?
4.
Is there?
Yeah.
You got to put Poppy in there. You got to put El Tiante, right? And
That's it. Oh,
that's 4.
no, that's 4. You're not allowed to say, don't say
Okay.
another name. Nope.
All right.
Nope.
I mean, those are I grew up, but you can go down to Ted Williams and a few others, right? But
We don't do honorable mentions. Nope.
yeah.
Hey, Rudy, your favorite Red Sox player of all time?
Nomar Garcia Para.
No ma.
He was all right. My favorite Red Sox player is the next one who strikes out. Sorry. Dan, you've been awesome. I knew you would be.
Thank you. Good time.
I stalk you people out and I wait and I look like a wolf in tall grass, waiting to pounce on somebody who has personality and who has stuff to say that people are going to want to hear. Dan, you were
Excellent.
my prey this week.
Thank you. I got more to talk about, so bring me back someday.
Well, we'll see you in person someday for sure.
Okay.
That'll happen, but yeah, we're not going anywhere. So anytime you gotta in the future you want to talk about a specific item, we'll get you on the warm up. We'll talk about a specific rule or something like that. You obviously have something to give to the game as far as knowledge and advice. So
Great.
yeah, we're not done with you, and we hope you're not done with us.
Excellent. I had a great time. Thanks for having me, guys.
You have a good night, Dan. Rudy, stay in the room.
Okay.
We need to talk. But
Okay.
Dan,
That sound.
wish you a good night and happy holiday.
See you later, guys. Thank you.
Hey, have a happy holidays.
You too, all.
And I'm still recording. I just thought we should get together for a couple minutes and say hi.
Hi. Oh, buddy. Oh my goodness. First off, I want to thank you for your patience and understanding. Like while I was sick, I could not talk. And I was on mute a few times. I think I snuck a cough in once or twice during this episode, and I apologize because I'm still recovering. But also, I was late. So as you know, and we've talked about, I have put in some time in decorating my house for Christmas, and the neighborhood has trolley rides where that you can sign up for a 20-minute trolley ride through the neighborhood, and you can see the homes in the neighborhood. Because yes, there is a competition and there is a prize for decorating the homes. They were a half hour behind schedule. I signed up for the 6:20 slot, and I was like, oh, I'll be home by 6:45. It's just down the street, piece of cake. We're going to do this episode. This is going to be a fantastic Sunday. Needless to say, they ran late, and not only were they behind schedule, I saw the most amazing house I was like, well, I'm not winning, because this house put the Griswolds to shame. Like, I'm not, like, I'm going to take a picture so you can see it. It is amazing. And it's a life goal. I think maybe in 20 years I can reach what they've accomplished, but it definitely put me in my place.
Well, it's good to have you back at whatever 90% or whatever you're at. And I've been feeling much better too.
Yeah.
But then I think just by association, you got on the Zoom and all of a sudden I had a little cough. I had to leave.
Oh no.
Jump out of the view of the Zoom for a cough. So I think what you've done has infected me.
I'm so sorry.
Well, I kept thinking of you on this trolley, and I couldn't help but start thinking about this. Truly the Titanic of trolleys. But you know what? We got through it. We only got 2 more episodes. I want to go through a couple of things. Hey, if you're still listening to us, thanks for sticking around. We had, obviously we had audio issues. Actually, I did for some reason. They never popped back up either. That was weird. But we got through it, and I didn't edit it. I'm not editing it. I don't do that. Not for these things. I'll do it for other things.
Yeah.
So we have an episode tomorrow night. We get to talk about vintage football and vintage baseball.
Oh my goodness.
In the same episode. Next week is our season ender with Tom Fesolwich. Am I saying that right? Is it Fesolowich?
Yep, there it is.
Fesolowich, big bat.
Yep.
Another big bat. Now, Rudy, what we're going to do during that episode, and I have discussed this with Tom, is we're going to open up. We're going to put the Zoom link out there.
Oh man.
While we're recording, we're going to bring in people. You, I, and Tom are all we're going to bring in one person at a time. We're going to ask them 3 questions and then boot their ass out of the Zoom. It's going to be amazing. You get to ask these people any question you want. So it doesn't have to be
okay.
any question you want. And They'll get their 3 questions and they'll be gone. And then we'll continue our interview with Tom until somebody else comes in. We'll see how that goes. That should be fun. That's our season ender. So Rudy, I have officially declared the Roller Out the Barrel show going to the Sulphur Dell Cup September 16th and 17th in Spring Hill, Tennessee at the Ripavilla Plantation.
Oh,
That's gold. That's happening. Also,
yes.
I assume that we're in favor. Let's take a vote. Are we broadcasting from the World's Tournament in Dearborn, Michigan? Raise your hand.
Well,
Well,
invitation or not? Yes.
invitation or not? Yes.
Oh, you don't know. You don't know if you're in or not yet as a club?
No, not yet.
No, not yet.
Let me ask you this. Oh, I can't ask you that. That's too personal. Whether the Columbus Capitals go to the World's Tournament or not, I'll be broadcasting for sure. And then we'll see what Rudy's allowed to do. And then of course, the Ohio Cup. I think we're both into that. Sulphur Dell's a couple weeks later, so it doesn't interfere in any way, shape, or form. And we'll be doing some shenanigans from the Ohio Cup, and as well we should. We get to see a lot of people there.
Oh yeah.
Anything on the vintage baseball front that you'd like to get across to some people? No?
No.
No.
You got your schedule out yet? No. So contact Rudy if you want to play against the
No,
Columbus Capitals.
Actually, don't.
Actually, don't.
That's a
don't-
very thank you,
that's
barrel
a
roller.
very thank you, barrel roller.
But no, don't contact.
But no,
me.
don't contact me.
Lots of openings.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Are the Columbus Capitals going to the Akron Cup?
I wish I had an answer for you.
I wish I had an answer for you.
Okay.
I
I
think
was
so.
hoping you did have an
so.
answer. You don't know yet for sure. It's just not confirmed.
Yes.
Okay. That's a date I'd like to add.
Okay.
If possible.
If you want to add it,
If-
I will make it. It is now become a priority for our club.
Doesn't have to be a club event though. It can just be a roller out the barrel event. You don't have to play.
Well, yeah. I mean, I love the Akron Cup. I want to play, but I also want to do the podcast. So I'm gonna have my cake and eat it too.
You just yes, I understand. I agree with you. Having cake is in my past.
I'm so
I can
proud
fit
of
into
you,
my
though.
fat clothes now, Rudy. I can fit into my fat clothes.
No, that
Like,
you
I'm
know
at
what?
my-
Congratulations,
at
buddy. That's not
pre-puberty.
easy.
Actually, it hasn't been that hard. I'll tell you why it hasn't been that hard is because I have a job that is quite physical.
True.
And then I have a side gig on the weekends that I get a ton of walking in on. And so I've always said all I have to do is eat better.
There you go.
And so the fasting and the eating better is doing what I thought it would. Now there is going to come a point here pretty soon because I know my body where I'm going to stop losing weight because it's going to say, now what you're doing is not enough.
Well,
You are going to have to kick it up a notch if you want to continue this. So we'll see how much I mean it when that point comes, but I'm still losing 1.5 pounds a week at this point. So I'm pretty happy
Yes.
about it. And I got to look, I went through Thanksgiving. I didn't lose any weight that week, but I also didn't gain any weight that week.
There you
And,
go.
Christmas might be a little harder. We got a lot of events to go to, so we'll see. But I
Yeah.
haven't had. Look, I had to break down and have. McDonald's came back with their bagels for breakfast, and the steak bagel for breakfast is by far my favorite fast food item that's ever been out. So I was on this diet and fasting when it came back because it's been gone for some years. And it's like, I'm not going to have one. I'm not going to have one. And then there was a day when I wasn't feeling well. It was a Friday. I was at work and I really felt like I needed to eat something to feel better. And I was delivering to a gas station that had a McDonald's in it. And I had one of those steak bagels. And My butthole burned for 2 days. I made so many trips to the restroom. It was one of the worst experiences my stomach has ever went through. And at the time it was awful. But now I'm like, you know what? Good. Because I don't think I could risk going back and having a fast food item.
Oh my gosh. You really do paint a picture.
Well, what can you do? I mean, it was painful. Seriously.
Oh my God.
All right. Well, good. Good to see you, my friend.
It's good to
I'm
see
glad
you.
your shirt is awesome. Thank you for the look what I have on.
You know, we this has been a busy day for me. I was just in Ashland, Ohio, which is about an hour north of us, and we were decorating holiday cookies. And I did my John McClane gingerbread man for you. So that we're connected.
We are connected. If you go back in the archives on Podbean, we did do a re-release of a watch along I did with JD Klein, who by the way has an idea for doing a watch along to Trading Places. I love that. I love that so much. But you can go way back to Rudy and I doing an audio reading of a Die Hard Christmas.
Oh,
That was first season, right? That
yes.
was right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes, because I think we started this podcast in December.
Yep.
We had chimney lube from the
Oh,
brewery.
ill-mannered
They still
brewery
have.
chimney lube.
Oh my God!
So good.
Now they make it in cans. You can get it to go. Let's go back to Ill Manor Brewery next Christmas. Let's do it.
I'm down. Absolutely.
Yes, we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
We'll get some more capitals and some German Village 9. I need a couple of German Village 9 guys
Yeah,
in my
those guys
life.
are great. Let's get those guys.
And then of course we'll get a couple muffins. Anybody else? No, that's probably it. So yeah,
Yeah,
tomorrow night. I'm gonna see you tomorrow night.
I'm so
This is
excited.
great.
This is the
All
best.
right.
All right.
All right. Happy holidays to everybody that stuck around and listened. So much, so much more coming for the Roll Around the Barrel show. But for now, Rudy, tell them.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the barrel roller, this is the Swamp Fox saying, keep it station to station. And we'll see you out in the field.
That's what the fox said.